Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to today's edition of the Coal Seam. I'm Chris Hamilton, and I'll be your host over the next 28 minutes. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Jason Bostic, also with the Coal Association, and Jason's here joining us on the set to talk a little bit about coal exports, metallurgical coal operations here within the state of West Virginia nationally, and also we're going to be focusing on some of the new mines that are opening with a whole lot of investment in our state and our people within the energy sector here in West Virginia. So Jason, got a lot to talk about. Welcome, first of all. And
thank you.
Thanks so much for taking time from your day to join us here on the set.
Appreciate the
Caught
invitation.
you walking by the studio and drug you in.
Just happened to be here.
Well, appreciate you taking the time. So much going on today within coal, and that's typically the case, but you know, there's just so much going on. You know, some of it's good, a whole lot bad right now with all the pressures coming out of Washington, D.C. With a whole new round of clean air initiatives and President Biden's carbon rule. But also just a lot of chatter about coal and energy here within West Virginia and nationally and internationally.
Yeah, Chris, it really is remarkable. It's almost like you've got a real dichotomy in the conversation about coal and energy specifically. You mentioned the air rules and the carbon rules, just the latest in a series of proposals. I think we're up to 5 new ones, or redos, if you will, of older rules to make them even more stringent and even more onerous. But at the same time, when you look around the world generally, and you see the world's still short on energy. You know, Europe happened to make it through what was perceived to be a self-inflicted energy crisis when the Russian invasion of Ukraine occurred. Thankfully, they didn't have a very rough winter. So they didn't run as short of energy as they expected that they would. But power prices skyrocketed to the highest they've ever been on that continent, as did coal and natural gas prices going into Europe. Because, as you know, they don't have much of either one of those resources themselves. They import most of their coal, most of their natural gas, and previous to the war, they did that from Russia.
You know, let's make a key point right at the outset of today's program. Last year, 2022, set an all-time record for international coal consumption.
It did.
Unbelievable. You know, we've become accustomed here within West Virginia and, you know, within the United States of hearing, you know, how we have to ratchet down our coal mining, our coal consumption. We tend to get conditioned that that's an international trend, but it's not an international trend. You know, it's only occurring here as it's occurred in Europe and a few other places. But world coal consumption, world coal production is on the increase.
It is.
Jason, let's make one important point here right at the outset of the program. If I'm not mistaken, last year, 2022, we set an all-time record for international coal consumption.
Yes. More
coal was consumed for electric generation and steel making last year than any other year in our nation's history.
Yes.
And that's amazing when you think about it, because, you know, we've become accustomed, mainly because a lot of the media outlets, how they emphasize, you know, the decrease of coal mined and consumed here locally. You know, we're doing quite well here, but, you know, internationally, coal sales, coal consumption's hitting record heights. You know, when you think about it, in China alone, and they appreciate the strength that it provides their nation, their security, their defense that coal-fired generation provides.
Absolutely. Because when you take, I think there's a combination with the ever-expanding economy and the recovery of China from the COVID lockdowns. I don't think they're completely through that yet. But you've got a rapidly growing and expanding economy in India. And India is resource poor. You know, China has its own coal reserves. They just don't produce enough to feed that enormous appetite that they have for good energy.
Here's what I see happening there. I see China expanding its coal portfolio because of the strength and reliability it provides as they build out their defense, their national security.
Absolutely.
Asia, on the other hand, is still rapidly growing, and they're going from being somewhat of a impoverished nation, a high percentage of their area, and so they're growing, and their power demands are increased. And as you indicate, they're resource poor, so they're trying to build out generation to support its growing economy.
Yeah.
Where China's enhancing its coal fleet and coal-fired generation to continue to build strength within the country.
Yeah, China's kind of sustaining its phenomenal growth and its expansion. But India, I think, is quickly coming up. It's going through the economic phase of development. It's making steel. A lot of folks think that India will shortly surpass China as the world's biggest steel maker. But they're building buildings, they're making roads, apartment buildings, so their needs of energy have just skyrocketed. And they don't have very good
And the
coal.
more your economy grows, take India, the more power is demanded to sustain that growth.
Exactly. And one of the things that India's been notorious for, going back 30 years, is the unreliability of its electrical system. A lot of it had to do with transmission, but even more of it had to do with the lack of reliable sources. Because India does have some coal, but it's very, very poor coal. Doesn't burn very well, doesn't combust very well. So you have the international demand from the Chinese, from China and India, which we've almost come to expect.
Whole Pacific Rim.
Yeah, but then you had the developed nations, South Korea, Japan, and the entirety of Europe, that were faced with this huge demand, huge increase in demand for energy at the same time when energy sources were disrupted because of the Ukrainian conflict and some other things that were going on. It's particularly true with respect to Europe. So
There's some of the state coal statistics being shown on the screen. We're still next to Wyoming, the largest, second largest coal producing state, the largest underground coal producing state. Wyoming's predominantly surface mining, as you well know, where we're predominantly underground mining today. On the order of magnitude of about 90% of the coal we mine and produce here comes from underground mining operations. We're the leading coal export state.
We are.
Very proud of that. We're the state's largest exported commodity. I think all told, we West Virginia coal accounts for about half or over half of the state's total export product.
Yes.
It's the fastest growing state export product.
And, Chris, the other thing it does, I think, is confirm, the industry statement that, West Virginia coal is the world's fuel of choice. If you want really good energy and you want it in a reliable fashion and you want high heat content for the product that you're moving halfway around the world, it needs to be West Virginia coal. And that's even more succinct on the metallurgical side of the world, or metallurgical side of the consumption. Because other nations, particularly Australia, have metallurgical coal. And some of it comes close to West Virginia's quality, but steel makers around the world demand West Virginia coal because we can make every type of iron and steel from, a birdhouse that you hang up on the side of the fence to surgical steel and that's implanted in somebody at some point to save their lives. That's just how good our coal is. And the other thing I think that illustrates, it goes back to your point about the media narrative. Coal's not dead, and it's certainly not dead internationally, and it's certainly not dead in West Virginia. We've had over the last 4 or 5 years, let's go back to 2020, even though that's kind of a bad year to use because of the pandemic, but we have major construction and expansion projects underway in West Virginia that I think if you were to total up that investment, it's about $7 billion.
Just over the past couple of years.
Absolutely. We have opened, as you know, we've opened whole brand new mining complexes with some of those investments totaling upwards of $700 million to lay the railroad track, the infrastructure, the preparation plants, the conveyor belts, to buy the new mining equipment, to allow an underground mining complex to produce about 3 million tons of coal over about 25 years. We've had 2 of those go in, and that's about 1,200 direct employees, coal miners, that'll be working at those facilities when they get full swing and get into production. But we've had smaller projects. We've had brand new coal mines built in southern West Virginia that not on whole, if you read the narrative from the press, you wouldn't think that. But we've commissioned 3, probably 4 brand new coal mining complexes in southern West Virginia, 2 surface mines and 2 deep mine complexes. I think that's reflective of the confidence that the investment community has in the need for high quality energy. But the other thing we've done in West Virginia over the last couple of years is spent a significant amount of investment to reactivate places and operations that were idled, either primarily during the great downturn under the Obama administration. And COVID and the pandemic had something to do with that, but we knew that energy was going to come back before the pandemic occurred. So we're reactivating operations that hadn't produced coal in 5, 10 years.
Pricing's been at an all-time high as well. I mean, it's been a very desired commodity.
It has, Chris. And we saw prices last year that, I never thought personally that I would ever see. And if you go back through history, whether it's internationally or domestically, they're the highest prices ever in recorded history since man started using black rocks to make heat or to make steel. Where there was a certain point during last summer.
Well, this is a good discussion, Jason. I want to focus on, maybe drill down on some of this new investment, because we have, really strong companies here in West Virginia. These are publicly traded companies, and there's still some local entrepreneur in the business. But these are companies, as you indicate, and it's worth just repeating, that are investing billions of dollars to expand or to put in new mining operations to sustain existing and new market opportunities over the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah, really.
It's an investment in West Virginia. It's an investment in our people here, and in the stability of the industry, having confidence in the future of the industry. And that's something that we have to overcome because of deal with because of this daily bombardment of coal's on the decline. We want coal eradicated from some of the more liberal media sources.
Yeah.
We're trying to recruit, we're trying to hire people, and it's important that we in the state of West Virginia partner with us as these new developments. This is all economic development. My goodness, when we learn of a battery factory coming into the northern part of the state, or we learn of a new steel manufacturing company coming into the state, there's more sirens and alarms that go off. The same excitement ought to reign through our state and our state government when we put a new mining operation in.
Absolutely. Again, given the investment levels, again, you and I were talking, I think conservatively, between the brand new places and the reactivation or expansion work that we've done, I think that's about $6 to $7 billion. And that level of investment dwarfs anything that's occurred in West Virginia recently that I can think of, whether it was mineral extraction for natural gas or a widget factory or anything else. But that's not the impression that you're left with. Again, it goes back to public perception. Public perception is we're closing, we're pulling out infrastructure, and we're sending people home. That's not the case. We are trying desperately to expand these operations and give good employment opportunities. And I think the other thing that's significant is when you think about especially southern West Virginia, because of the geographical limitations and the economic challenges it's faced over the years, if you spend $500 million in a southern West Virginia community, whether it's McDowell County or Wyoming County, think of the huge ripple throughout the local economy that's going to have. We've got contractors, we've got construction workers, we've got guys building roads, we've got engineers designing the infrastructure. In the 2 instances in southern West Virginia, we had railroad track crews laying new railroad lines for about 6 months in southern West Virginia. So they had to have somewhere to stay, they had to have somewhere to eat. All that stuff reverberates throughout economies that desperately need it.
Well, and your typical miner, really enjoys the outdoors here in West Virginia, the hunting and fishing seasons. He has a four-wheeler or more. He has a side-by-side.
Or a few of them.
Or a few of them. And I mean, yeah, he just really, really is tailor-made for our environment and our culture here in West Virginia. It all kind of works together. So, it's really it's just another aspect. I mean, no one participates and enjoys our recreation and natural resources here any more than our coal mining families.
Absolutely. And, the expansion that we're going through, hopefully we can, bring more folks in here to enjoy the great standard of living, I think, that West Virginia offers.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a coal mining position, like we've talked, some of these places are going to last at least 20 to 25 years, if not more, and earn the highest salary that's offered in the state through the coal industry, and relatively low
What's
cost
a miner
living.
make today?
They are the highest paid worker in West Virginia. Their average annual wage is about $89,000.
$89,000.
And I think that number, that's Census Bureau, that's economic development numbers. I think that number is a little misleading, quite frankly. What you and I have
We have
witnessed.
miners hitting six digits in their annual income.
Absolutely.
There's a large component of that.
If a coal miner is willing to acquire a specialized skill set, a little more training, a couple extra hours after his normal shift to learn, say, to be an electrician, to get some EMT certifications, any kind of specialty, or become a specialized equipment operator, whether it's a longwall shield or continuous miner, they're making upwards of six figures. I have every confidence.
Just as a lot of people probably watching the show for the first time or not really familiar with mining, and when they hear about us shipping coal, West Virginia coal, all over the world because of its quality, and the fact that it's desired for steel making or electric generation primarily. When there's a perception that the industry is somewhat antiquated, and when people think of coal mining, right away they think of a couple dirty-faced Southern West Virginia workers, but these guys are so extraordinarily skilled. I mean, they are all today journeyman level industrial workers. They work with great precision and sophistication. They use equipment that are state-of-the-art, fully computerized. We use the term Star Wars technology. When you look at these machines that are used in the extractive processes, now you still get your hands dirty, but very few hands touch coal during the course of a day or a pick or shovel. It's operating the equipment remotely. As I indicated, it's all computerized. The electric hydraulic systems are state of the art, probably more advanced than what you'll find in some of these other industrial applications that you hear or read so much about.
Absolutely, because I was thinking while you were talking, the engineering and design interface between precision machines and human interaction to operate them is probably sharper and more focused in the coal industry than is anything else, whether it's automotive manufacturing or steel manufacturing, widgets, or even microchips. Again, we extract a difficult reserve base here in West Virginia. It's harder to mine here than it is lots of other places, just because of the nature of the topography and the reserves. You know that. But we do it with such precision and safety that it truly is a marvel. And the fact that we're able to continue to advance that allows us to survive as a state and continue to produce coal. If we didn't have that level of ingenuity and engineering and design, we wouldn't be able to extract these tough seams.
If there's people sitting out there looking for a career opportunity, something that pays, as you indicated, in that $80,000, $90,000 range, I know they show our website and our contact information from time to time on this program. They should feel free to call.
Absolutely. I mean, again, the opportunities are there. We still have a deficit of trained workers. Where we overcome that a little bit. We've made remarkable strides to continue to expand the workforce, but there's not nearly enough. And those opportunities are there, particularly in northern West Virginia as we expand those new operations. And even in southern West Virginia, as we're bringing some of these places back to life that had been asleep for about 10 years.
Jason, I read somewhere recently that if you were West Virginia metallurgical coal coming from our members predominantly is used in over 60% of all the steel manufactured in this country.
Yes, 69% of all the met coal that's used by the domestic steel industry comes from West Virginia.
Comes from West Virginia.
And it goes back to the diversity of the product that we have here. So steel makers take blends of different types of met coal and blend those different types of coal together to suit the needs of their individual furnaces or their individual ovens. And West Virginia is very, very unique. We can supply all 4 types of that coal. So you have to have a little bit of, type A, a little bit of type B, a little bit of type C, and a little bit of type D. The mixture is very specific to the facility, but West Virginia can give you all 4 kinds.
Maybe it ought to be said too that you cannot make steel with wind or solar power.
Cannot.
There's no substitute for good old metallurgical coal.
There isn't. And as you know, met coal serves 2 purposes. There's the heating aspect to get a blast furnace charge of iron ore to melt at a very, very high temperature. But the other thing, there is a chemical aspect in the steel making process that coke has to fulfill. It is an oxygen reducing agent that allows iron oxide to be converted to iron. But you also use coke and metallurgical coal to infuse steel with carbon to make it strong. And that's something that's unique to the developed world and to the United States in particular. We make very, very precision steel in the United States, as does South Korea, as does Japan. We don't make a whole lot of what I call pig iron, which is general steel for lawn furniture or things like that. We're making automobiles, we're making appliances. We're making high quality structural steel for infrastructure. And that demands a very, very precise blend of metallurgical coal that only West Virginia can offer.
Jason, I attended a meeting recently and heard John Deskins at West Virginia University, who's regarded as the state's leading economist for all intent and purposes. He was talking about the value of metallurgical coal. And he indicated during this program that if you incorporate the mining in West Virginia that's associated with the metallurgical coal portfolio and the steel facilities that uses West Virginia coal, that our industry, that portion of our industry represents close to $200 billion of economic activity out there amongst, I think it's 20-some states maybe.
Yes.
And it also accounts for over 500 million workers in this country.
It really is remarkable.
Coal miners and steel workers that just use West Virginia coal to manufacture their steel.
Yeah, because when you think about the steel industry in the country or a steel facility, it's a lot like a coal mine. Steel manufacturing is extremely capital intensive, and it's got a huge supply chain behind it. So you have to have the steel workers at the blast furnace, you have to have the guys at the rolling mills to cut and shape the steel, but you also have to remember you've got another entire supply stream before you get to the blast furnace of iron ore production, of limestone production, ferromanganese production.
We think of, and it's been part of our discussion over the past few years, you think of a coal-fired electric plant here in West Virginia, and even outside of West Virginia that consumes West Virginia coal, as part of the extended coal economy. And you think of those plant workers, whether it be at the John Amos plant down the road or the Pleasance Power Plant that you read so much about, or the Mitchell Power Plant up in the northern panhandle, Marshall County. Those facilities are part of the extended or broader coal community, coal economy. companies in Indiana, steel producing companies, that are using West Virginia metallurgical coal because it fits their boilers and it's the only place domestically they can get those coal supplies. You know, those steel facilities are also part of our extended coal economy.
Absolutely. So if you follow the supply chain the other way, the steel outputs, whether it's appliance steel or it's automotive steel, you can by extension consider the automotive assembly or the automotive factories in this country a further extension of the West Virginia coal family.
You know, just think about the numbers are overwhelming. As you and I know, there's over 50,000 West Virginia jobs filled predominantly by West Virginians that play some role with our coal industry here within the Mountain State. You know, we have the 14,000 direct mining jobs, all the preparation, coal handling, coal transportation jobs. And then when you get into the, associate membership, the associate companies, that perform some task at an operating mine, that number exceeds, I think last year it was 57,000 workers,
57,000.
technicians, people that have specialty occupations and jobs around a mine, reclamation, all those in positions, just all the engineering and technical jobs that go into some of the water treatment and other tasks that are done, mine permitting. I mean, it's just amazing. Then when you extend that to the electric facilities and then the steelmaking facilities, it's just an unbelievable reach that West Virginia coal and that a West Virginia coal miner has on our nation's economy.
And Chris, the wealth generation from a ton of West Virginia coal extracted by a West Virginia coal miner, well, if you follow it through the supply chain, all the jobs associated with coal production, then you've got the transportation aspect, then you've got the benefits of cheap energy if it's steam coal, and then you have the benefits of manufacturing, American manufacturing if it's metallurgical coal. A lot of wealth comes from a lump of West Virginia coal.
We're going to have to wrap things up here, and this is on a great positive note. Thank you so much for coming in today and sharing all your views and wisdom with us. And thank you for tuning into today's program, The Coal Seam, on the Library Television Network. Have a good day. Thank you.